Good afternoon and welcome once again to the POLITY, reaching you live from Abuja. We apologize for the delay in starting there. But right now we'll kick off things by having a discussion on a host of issues, particularly the ministerial screening, which ended about a day ago. And we have about 45 out of 48 ministers being screened or officially screened, while security checks remain for some. But that being said, we'll be taking a look at the process, the choice of nominees, and what this entails for Nigeria's future as regards the persons who will carry out the agenda, the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And joining me today to do justice to this matter is Dr. Law Mefo. He's a policy analyst and a social scientist. Good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, my pleasure also.
All right, so let's start with the process so far. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Some persons have rated it fair, some persons have rated it poor, some have been in the middle, but I'd like to get your thoughts as to the work the Senate is meant to do as regards vetting and screening those ministers. How did you see the process so far?
Well, I think the process has been the same all the ways, and nothing much. What you may call the process to fulfill all righteousness. I say so because things I expect should play roles in the process are simply not there. And those who have been screened, you can't say precisely why they passed, how they passed the hurdle. Because the hurdles set for them have never been made clear to anybody, so that you can follow through with them and see how the individuals respectively scaled through such hurdles or failed to do so, so that when they are cleared without crossing such hurdles, the public will be in a position to say, look, we don't think you got this one right. There is no yardsticks as far as I am concerned. And I do think that the problem has to do with the way the nominations of these candidates, the way the nominations was actually done. For me, I believe that screening is practically impossible if you can't match the nominees against certain competencies. By that I mean, pairing the nominees with ministerial positions. That way you will be able to say whether the individual actually qualifies to fit into. But what
about a basic, a baseline that like whatever portfolio you get?
So what do you call a baseline here? There is no baseline beyond the qualifications for an individual to contest and win a place in the National Assembly. So the constitutional provisions for that, they are there for all to scrutinize.
No, what I mean is, do you think perhaps the Senate can take a look at the person and say, even if you meet these other requirements such as education and so on, from their interaction with you, they do not believe you are capable of the job? Is that something?
Job? That's the question I'm asking. The job of being a minister is so vague. We need to know minister for what? Minister of what? You see, somebody who is suited for the office of the Minister of Foreign Affairs may be quite unsuitable when it comes to women affairs or youth and sports and so on and so forth. So you really discover that there are competencies that must be matched with the individuals you are nominating. Somebody who is going to head the physical aspects of Nigerian economy in the person of the Minister of Finance or the Minister of National Planning. We want to see how grounded you are in economy, both in training, what you may call a cognate experience, the kind of training you have received through education and through work experience. We want to see these things. They are all lacking. You can't find any such yardstick. So what the Senate simply does is just to do what even the office of the DSS could do. As far as I'm concerned, maybe check if you have poor records in this and that. For example, you could see somebody who's the highest educational qualification is school sat. He's there, it's cleared. You can see somebody who is a graduate, but didn't have the basic entry requirements for you to even enroll into the university system. The person is also cleared. Why wouldn't the person be cleared where the Constitution says that the qualification to even become the president of Nigeria is attempted school sat? Do you understand that? So the Senate cannot disqualify such a person except on moral ground, where one begins to say which university allowed you to enroll with only 2 credit pass.
I'm sorry to continue, Dr. Law. We talk about it a lot. We just take it. We've all accepted it, but sometimes I wonder. I want to take a little segue now. What do you make of these constitutional will I call it provisions? What thought do you think went into the highest office in the land having the lowest qualifications needed? Yeah,
they just want to carry every section of the country along. That's a fact. Because you have some states in Nigeria that are really educationally disadvantaged. So if you say the president of Nigeria must be a graduate, then you may be shunting out some states. Do you understand that? They would leave that to the Nigerian masses, electorate, to decide whether the person is qualified or not.
What about in this modern day? Do you think it's still
the Constitution hasn't been amended, and the last constitutional amendment we had did not attempt.
No, I know. I'm talking about the situation of things. Do you think the educational level is fair enough?
It can't be fair enough. There is no way in modern governance, somebody who is not in line, in tune with where things are, will be able to catch up. We saw that in the presidency of Muhammad Buhari. He was not in charge because he wasn't quite grounded in modern day economics. That's a fact. So it was a major deficiency. He now had to outsource his presidency to a cabal that nobody elected. So that constitutional provision is very deficient. It's something that needs to be addressed. There should be basic educational qualification.
But the question I was asking is, those states you refer to, do you think they've over the years they've upgraded to the extent where it won't be what's the word, marginalization to raise the educational requirements?
Have they really? See, well, yes, they have upgraded a bit, and I think we have enough graduates across everywhere, in every state at least. We do have indeed. I'm not sure of any state in Nigeria that doesn't have dozens of graduates, if that becomes a basic qualification. And for me, it should be. There should be basic qualification where it comes to education, and then cognate experience. Training and practice, you need to bring the two together. It's not that the president of the country or the minister will have to be an expert. Do you understand what I'm saying? So to say, you really mustn't be an expert, but you should be knowledgeable enough to understand advice. You should be able to read reports. You should be able to read for yourself. You should be able to look at policies you are pursuing, read through, consult, research, and be able to recognize quality advice when you see one. Some people who are not really upgraded, in training and practice, are not in a position to discern. So you will now face with a situation where you are saddled with an individual that is has a good heart, but delivery goes beyond being good. We're not talking about goodness here even. Yes, integrity is fundamental, but competency is also inevitable. You need to be competent, and nobody is born with any form of competency. Nobody. You have to acquire it through education and practice. That's where the problem comes. That's why I said that I saw the CV of one of the ministers cleared, and his highest educational qualification is school sat. Do you understand that? School start. Now you wonder the kind of minister he would make. I really don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I will follow. I want to follow to see how he survives the position, because the office of the minister has to do with policy formulation, policy direction, policy implementation. You have to lead a team of directors. A permanent secretary in Nigeria, none of them is not a graduate. They are all graduates. Do you understand what I'm saying? All the directors in Nigeria, I believe that all of them are graduates. And you are the one presiding over all of them with a school start. I don't know how you will be able to, the individual will certainly find it difficult. So what he will have to do is to acquiesce his office, and look in the direction of possibly a particular director or the permanent secretary, and take a cue from whatever the person says.
So can they outsource? Do you think they have enough
he is
to
bound
outsource?
to outsource because the competency isn't there. See, if you look at the ministerial list of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it's all politics. The technocrats there, they are not up to 5. And I can name them. They are not up to 5. The rest are politicians. Do you understand that? So, you see where politics has taken preeminence over governance and delivery. Capacity to deliver is clearly lacking in this assemblage. Even where some people are seemingly qualified, like the former, this, X that, X everything else, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The hunger, the basic intrinsic motivation to deliver will be lacking. For example, he has 9 to 10 former governors.
Wow.
Look at that. And some of these governors actually wanted to be president. So if these people, their determination is to be president, and they have been governor for 8 years, some of them, 1 or 2 of them have been ministers even before being governors. Somebody like El Rufai was a minister 20 years ago, and he is now going to be minister again 20 years after, and he has been a governor for 8 years in between. I can't see where the motivation will be coming from to deliver. There won't be such hunger. So if you give such people who are obviously deficient when it comes to the basic drive to deliver, is lacking, obviously lacking for the reasons I have just provided.
Right.
You will have a problem of delivery waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. So you may have, satisfied a clique that have helped you to become president. That is the achievement here, which is an end in itself and not a means to an end. A ministerial team will be a team that will help the president to deliver on his vision. I can't see the people. Okay, if you remove somebody like Professor Momo, Professor Pate, 1 or 2 others, maybe even Erufai, but I've told you where Erufai's problem will be coming from. I expect that Erufai should be verging into what we call burnout by now. Burnout is when an individual has done something for too long. He gets tired of it and no more motivation to continue. So you will see that some of them accepted or lobbied, even paid for this slot, simply because they want to remain in the system, remain relevant in the system, rather than be outside. Most of them have lived off government for 20, 30 years. And their survival outside government is a problem. So you can see that their inherent motivation is not actually the drive to deliver. That's not why they seek the office. Right. They seek the office to, maintain a hold on the state power.
All right. Let me quickly speak to the technocrats who said that there, Professor Pate and others. The question now is, should there be some sort of revolution as to how those experts, those who are good at certain fields, start to look at politics? You know, I want to bundle two questions. That's the first one. How do you think technocrats should also behave? Because I believe a lot of people think, well, politics is beneath me. I'm going to do my job. I'm not going to worry about this. This is for, you know, the low-class persons and so on.
No.
So do you think technocrats should be doing more?
Technocrats
to involve themselves in
can
politics.
be seen. They don't necessarily have to involve in politics.
Yeah, but no.
Wait a minute.
I mean, I just want to point out that if technocrats were among the persons doing the groundwork for President Tinubu, I mean, if it would fit two necessities, that I'm rewarding this person for the work they've done for me, but they're also competent and they're also technocrats. I know. But when technocrats stay away, if the politicians look at them and say, these people did nothing for you, and you're sidelining us.
That is what we're saying. You see, when you are contesting for any office, you look for people who will help you, right? Deliver you at the polls. They don't necessarily have to be the people that will govern with you, because when it comes to governance, politics should take the back seat. You look for those who can deliver on specific rules. They don't need to be part of those who did the campaigns and all that. They don't have to be. Technocrats hardly have that kind of time. They don't. Because if you notice, they are professionals, core professionals who are taking care of certain aspects of the economy. Many of them are not even in Nigeria. So when you need, you see, for every president, you should have some core areas where you want to make a difference, right? Then you engage in what you call headhunting. You headhunt for specific individuals. We saw it with Obasanjo, we saw it with Obasanjo, how he went out of his way to hunt for specific personalities and drew them into the system and use them to deliver. He had to go in search of somebody like Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And not only her, Obi Ezekwesili, somebody like Dora Akoyele, Professor Chukwuma Soludo. He went out of his way in search of such people. These are not everyday politicians. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala specifically is not one. You wouldn't want her to be running around mounting Rose Room and addressing masses. She's not cut out for that. But she's cut out for economic delivery. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they can give you a year or two of their time and perform specific rules. These are the kind of people I am saying I haven't seen in the cabinet. I mentioned about 2 or 3, and I told you that on the whole, I can see up to 5. Even Stella or Tete, right? The one coming from Exim Bank, is not even cleared yet. Because she is one of the technocrats. So you discover that you have a bunch of politicians who have always been around, feeding off government. And many of them are tired. These 10 governors, what is their pedigree? What did they deliver in their states to make them so outstanding that you need them, at the center? I can't say.
Can we talk about, what some persons have deemed as the curse of public service, where that even some persons who have made a name for themselves in the private sector, sometimes they get into office and we see a whole different person. I don't want to mention names, but there's some governors on the list who have this tag to their name that before they became governors, their names and their praises were sung from east to west, that they were really versed at what they were doing. But when they, emerged as governor, they didn't quite see that anymore. And I think perhaps this has to do with what we're already talking about, the issue of technocrats versus politicians. I don't know if the system is buckling them now. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And also, there is one particular ministerial nominee, Bosun Tijani, who is, very well known in the ICT world, tech. And he was a very, very big critic. In fact, it was more than a critic to an extent. He used some very harsh words for the government, and he was made to apologize for it at the screening. People like this who have been so I don't want to say anti-government, maybe anti-administration, establishment.
Yes, okay, yeah.
For the fact that he was, forced, or let me know his word forced, was impressed upon to apologize that day. It shows that a lot of people still hadn't or haven't let go of his words towards core politicians like them. Such a person, such a technocrat who knows his onions, the world over. Bosun Tijani is not just in Nigeria, is known over the world. Such a person, do you think he would be able to deliver if he has such what's the word, ill will, I don't know if that's a good word, against him for the things he said about the people he has now gone to join?
In this whole thing, in presidential democracy, the buck stops, at the president's table.
Yes.
And if he does not deliver, right, two factors will be responsible: himself and the president. It has nothing to do with politicians, because he can decide to turn their backs on them and face the rule that has been carved out for him. If you send somebody like that to Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, I don't see why he should not deliver, because the rule is very clear what you should do there. And if you look at what the predecessor did, what's this guy's Pantani, right? I think that's the name.
Pantani, yeah.
Pantani, he brought in a lot of innovations. So, he should, so that person should be able to improve upon such a basics already, some foundations already being laid.
But what do you make about others that have failed? People that
those who have failed didn't do what I have just talked about. Many of them are not even fitted into proper ministries. Like we talked about this bosom now. This bosom, rather than being sent to Ministry of Communications, may end up in a place like sports. So if he does not deliver in sports, do you really blame him? Because we should be talking in terms of what we call square pegs in square holes, round pegs in round holes. So that's why I talked about matching nominees, candidates with portfolios, so that we should be able to know how deep you are in understanding the tenets, the basics, and the advanced components of the ministry that you are being assigned to. If you don't match the individuals properly, then their delivery will become very, very difficult. The reason is because they will need time on the job to understand what they ought to be doing. But if it's a place where they are familiar with, where they have actually garnered their experience, is particularly cognate experience, in terms of training and experience, they will not have any problems fitting in. Because even before they came in, they have observed that sector and they have an idea of what the problems are, and the delivery will now be easier because they know where the problems are and what they will bring to the table to make things different. You don't always get this. So when technocrats are mismatched, what do you expect them to do? If you look at Buhari's cabinet, it suffered from my observation, because in his cabinet you have about 7 to 10 lawyers. Do you understand that? Someone like Fashola, a lawyer, was heading a power, and we wonder why we don't have electricity. So such problems will always be there if you play politics with everything. For me, if I were the president of Nigeria, all the people who helped me in election and electioneering, even funding, I'll send it to boards. The highest I can do is to make you chairman of a board. I can make you head of the administrative head of boards, especially where they are technical. That's where, for me, politics should end. Do you understand that?
In this setting, do you think they would accept that?
It's not a matter of accepting, because the president is already elected and sworn in. The worst thing is that you will not help him in his re-election. But of course, why are you worrying about re-election when you haven't delivered on your first term? So for me, the consideration should be delivery, good governance. if you deliver dividends of democracy through good governance, the electorates, they are watching. They will be the ones you will submit your report card to, and not to these politicians. Because ultimately in the polls is the electorate, the people that will vote. Most of these politicians don't even vote, though they have followers. Do you understand that? You know, so if you are popular, even if you are unpopular and you deliver on dividends of democracy, the masses will naturally gravitate to your side. That is just what should worry any president, any governor, not these politicians. But Tinubu is not concerned, so it doesn't seem to me to be preoccupied with the need to deliver dividends of democracy. Ultimately, that is why I see more of politics in the assemblage of ministerial nominees and all that. I see politics. I don't see the drive for delivery, because I cannot see what you can call star candidates. There are some people that you will see, they offer hope based on the kind. You talked about someone like Bosom now, saying that he goes beyond Nigeria. He's a global figure where it comes to ICT. Such people. Do you understand that? Yeah. And I also commend Tinubu for ignoring or rather taking his advice, right? In the harsh criticisms. For me, he is saying, Tinubu by that appointment is saying, well, you seem to know it, come and prove it. Do you understand what I'm saying? During the time of IBB as military president, that was the way he made his appointments. He brought in somebody like Olukoye Ransom-Kuti to head health based on headhunt. Say, look, you've written about all these things, right? If you know that what you are saying is true, is needed, come and implement it. Come and take over that sector. He brought in someone like Tai Solari as the ultimate critic of IBB. Say, look, you are the masses man, fine, come and take care of Nigerian masses. He set up the People's Bank and handed it over to Tai Solari. You know that kind of headhunting. You bring in people who will make the difference and hand them over a sector. You hand them over a sector where you know that delivery is needed to be able to translate to the kind of renewed hope that you are promising Nigerians. Who will do it amongst these people? For example, now the Ministry of Defense, who is heading it here now? I can't see even a single retired general. Can't see one. You know, so I don't know, because some jobs are so technical that you need somebody in that sector who trained in it, who is also ready to serve.
So what do you think is the plan or the hope that President Tinubu has if he is making these decisions based on politics? What is he hoping to achieve at the end of 4 years? Consolidation
of power. He doesn't care whether the people are satisfied or not, as far as he's holding on to power. That's all I say. You know, so through his conduct and this kind of appointments, I am saying the president see power as an end in itself, not an end, not a means to an end. You see where the tragedy is. And I just pray very hard that I am wrong. Because if you don't have those to deliver, you can't deliver, because the president is just one person. If you don't have, you know, for example, if the son amongst them, what's this guy's name? He's been one of the foremost lawyers in Nigeria. They understand what I'm saying. And I naturally would expect that somebody like that should be drafted as the Minister of Justice, Attorney General of the Federation. Supposing you move him to power and send the Keyamo there, you expect a miracle. You know, so these are problems. Yes, Keyamo is a son, but we know he's more into politics than you want somebody whose presence is a bit subdued, who will focus on the job and leave politics to politicians. You understand what I'm saying? That particular son that I'm talking about, I can't remember his name easily now. I don't know why I can't remember. He is not a politician. He's a core professional. Very visible, senior advocate of Nigeria. But when we see the allocation of the ministries, we will know who takes what. Because I want to see who will head the fiscal, the fiscal component of the government. And that is the person that will head the office of the Ministry of Finance and the office of the Minister of National Planning. These two ministers, I want to know who they are. If he gets it right with these two, the next component that he wants to worry seriously about is who will ultimately head the Central Bank of Nigeria. The man who is acting now is a mechanical engineer. Oh. Maybe he has learned on the job, but I will never, personally, I will not hand over the Central Bank of Nigeria to an engineer. I may be wrong, but this is my gut impression. I won't do that. It's a lot of risk. Too much risk. Part of the problems Nigeria underwent in the hands of Emefiele had to do with his training, his worldview, where it comes to monetary policies. And that was why he collapsed monetary policies and fiscal policies. He was busy throwing money at every problem. At the end of the day, where did he lose? He inherited the Naira from, I think, 260. And by the time he was departing, Naira to dollar was 700. Do you see the problem? So, these are things. If you make any faulty appointment based on politics, this is the kind of result you get. So, I am worried for the president because he doesn't seem to have a good team.
All right, can I, just to cut in there, do you think the state ministers or ministers for states have any strong effect? I say this because you said that the technocrats are not really up to 5 or so.
In my view, there may be more, but
I get it. But if those persons end up as ministers of states, do you think it still does what it's meant to do? Do you think ministers of states have? If you're a minister
of state, you need to have a very understanding minister, before you can do anything there. They can decide to sidetrack you completely. You remember the time Kachuku was Minister of State for Petroleum? The GMD of NNPC was going straight to the president. Going to Buhari, who was the minister of Petroleum. He cut off Kachuku as Minister of State for Petroleum completely. Never reported to him once. He got to a point that Kachuku had to openly tell Nigerians what was going on there. Did he change? So that will give you an idea of the relationship between a minister and the Minister of State. The minister sees himself as substantive, and the other is an assistant minister. And as a matter of fact, that is what it is. And that is also why I agree with Festus Keyamo when he said that, look, in the Constitution, there is nothing like Minister of State. I agree with him. So why don't you break up these ministries? So that every minister, heads a particular ministry.
But even at that, do you think 48 is a bulky number?
48, Nigeria is quite huge. You understand what I'm saying? The number being unwieldy is neither here nor there. Because if you check what it is, as a matter of fact, in the final analysis, 48 may not be too much if we look at the areas, how money gets siphoned, how the economy is hemorrhaging. May not be in the number of ministers.
But this is
what you need, just 1 minute. You see, you need to read the Steve Oronsaya report. Nigeria has about 500 parastatals, perhaps more. Many of them are duplicated. Let me give you an example. When you say Public Complaints Commission, what is the difference between Public Complaints Commission and federal you have a public complaints commission, then you have there is this other body that is also looks into complaints. So why don't you bring the two together? Do you understand what I'm saying? If you come to the Ministry of Information, you have DJs, Voice of Nigeria, Radio Nigeria, this and that. These DGs can be directors under one ministry. Must the Voice of Nigeria be an entirely standalone, commission? Do you understand? So when it comes to these MDAs, right, ministries, departments, and agencies, you need to understand their roles and look for areas that are duplicated. If you go to Ministry of Petroleum, you see so many parastatals doing, the same job as far as I am concerned. Because when you have the parent body as NNPC Limited, all others under it should be departments. And they shouldn't be headed by directors general. There is no need for it. They should be directors, not DGs. Because when you say DG, now you're talking about, directors again. Do you understand what I'm saying? There are about 5 mandate directorates where you have, an MDA, right? Ministry, department, and agencies. There are about 5 mandate directors you must establish under one. And there are complements that go with these establishments. You don't just appoint somebody a director without an office, without official vehicles, without some special staff, without allowances apart from his salaries and stuff like that. But you may not have to do all that, because if for example the Ministry of Petroleum has a 20 parastatals, because they may be up to 20, and you reduce it to maybe about 5, do you know the number of directors you have cut down in this whole process? So let me just change. Oronsoya report is so comprehensive. Oronsoya showed us how we can bring down the parastatals in Nigeria to about 200 from 500.
I guess this boils down to political will, to
that's it. There is political will.
But interestingly, do you think it's possible this administration disagrees with that report to an extent? Because the NLC president recently said he was speaking to either the president or a representative of the president, and he was asking about the appointments. The other day, anyway, there have been a lot of appointments going on. So the question was, what is the president doing? Why so many appointments? Isn't this too much? Shouldn't we be having a small government to do the work? And the reply was that, from the president's people, that the president is creating employment. So the idea is that the more people are appointed, the more people come into political office, and so on and so forth, employment is being created. So is this not in stark contrast to what the Oronsoya report is trying to say that we should be doing?
That is why I said that what I see with Tinubu is more of politics. Do you understand that? That is where this logic of creating employment is coming from. Government does not create employment. That's not your primary responsibility. What government does is to, in a employment and productivity, there is what you call enablers. The job of government is to create an enabling environment and providing the enablers. For example, electricity. Do you understand that? You have to first and foremost philosophically define the kind of government you want to run. Do you want to run an economy that is public sector driven or private sector driven? I believe I have heard and read in the president's submissions, even since his inauguration, that he wants to run a government, and an economy that is private sector driven. I've heard that. I've seen that. That runs counter to what his aides are saying, that the president is creating jobs by creating perhaps more parastatals. No. What you need to do is to empower the private sector to create jobs. Do you know, in a place like the US, their ministers may not be up to 18. You can Google it. And now, because our constitution says that, look, you need to have at least, even the constitution is part of the problem. Because the constitution says at least one minister, right? When you use the word at least, you're saying there could be more. Do you understand that? So that at least is what Tinubu is exploiting to appoint 48 ministers. Do you see the problem? Now, to that extent, you know, we need to understand that he is not focusing on the core issues. There are core issues that have to do with providing enablers. I want to see a master plan on how to jumpstart the electricity or power sector to shift from 5,000 megahertz we enjoy at the moment to at least 15,000 megahertz. We want to see a roadmap. You have signed into law, President Tinubu signed into law the devolution of power, in the power sector by moving the electricity from exclusive list to concurrent. What that means is that the states can now come in, even individuals as well as local governments. There should be a technical committee working on that. We want to see the governors. Do you understand that? Agree with the president on how to implement that provision, that new provision that says that we now can now generate electricity, transmit, and distribute. That's what the new law says. But nobody is activating that. You are instead trying to bring in more political appointees. How many of them can you take? Do you understand that? Whereas you know that if you move electricity from 5,000 megahertz to 15,000 megahertz in the next 2 years, the private sector will naturally blossom. One major lacking enabler in the Nigerian economy as of today is the power sector. If you deal with the issue of electricity today, the economic problem of Nigeria will diminish by more than half, because people will be in a position to take care of themselves. What Nigerians are looking for is very little, very basic. They are not asking for anything beyond the enabling environment that will help them thrive, help them drive their own family businesses. That's what we're talking about. Nigerian youths are ready to work, but where are the enablers? I just used the issue of light as an example. Yes, in the announcement of the palliatives by the president, he talked about 75 billion naira that will be accessed by 75 manufacturing companies. Yeah, fine. But then, the problem, what the manufacturing sector in Nigeria needs is not 1 billion naira. 1 billion naira, divided by 800, gives you what? 1 billion. How would, in terms of dollars now, if you want to bring it, you're talking about, maybe about 1.2, $1.2 million. What can that do? You need to deal with the power sector. That is what manufacturing is talking about. You need to deal with, what you may call tax holiday on certain imports that have to do with the machinery. Do you understand that? If you are bringing in certain machinery, we may decide to even waive the import on that, because it will bring down the cost of the cost per unit in the manufactured goods, and ultimately translate to lower prices in the market. These are the kind of things we're talking about, but the president is not addressing them. Yes, some people would say that, you see, he cannot take on everything at once, but are you really taking on the most primary? I want to see the president addressing his mind to very primary needs of the country. The needs that are primary. I mentioned the electricity. He talked so much about agriculture. He provided he made some monetary provisions for the people in the agro sector. Beautiful. But then, does that address why the farmers are no longer going to farm? What is the plan of the president when it comes to security? We have talked so much about community policing, state policing. I had expected by now the president will set up a technical committee to address it and advise him on how we can go about this.
Well, speaking about what the president is doing, what do you make of the committee or the Presidential Committee for Tax Reforms, where we saw yesterday a young girl, a 400 level student, is actually part of that committee? What expectations do you have from there?
A girl still in school being part of such a technical committee is an indicator that it's all politics. Because there is something she can bring to the table. Nothing. Except help in making tea and stuff. Tell me what a student can bring to the table. Where you have core experts.
But those are,
with over 10 years experience in the tax sector. You didn't see them to bring what is the qualification that really made the girl a vital component of such a technical committee.
But she's just one of many.
That's what I'm saying. That from the makeup, I can't say. See, when I look at appointments, right? The first thing I check is the pedigree of the individual. You know why? As a psychologist, we believe that the simplest way to predict somebody's future behavior is by looking at his past. You know why? Adults hardly change. They can change, maybe with prayers and all that, but don't bank so much on that. You need to look at the past of the individual. It will help you to predict what the individual is likely to do in the future. So when you bring somebody that has no experience, not even a graduate yet, and you bring the person into such technical assignment, it means that you are just playing politics.
All right, Dr.
That's how I say it.
Yeah, let's quickly go on a break. We'll talk more about that, and we'll talk dwell a little bit on the process of the screening and what happened with Festus Keyamo. I'd like to get your thoughts on that and the dropping of some names or a name from the list. All right, we'll go on a short break. When we return, the program continues. Stay with us.